Hey everybody, today I am reviewing a film that's not necessarily a classic, but I don't care, I'm reviewing it anyway just because I love it. Synecdoche, New York, which came out in 2008. It stars the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, Catherine Keener, Samantha Morton, and Michelle Williams. The movie is directed by a very famed indie screenwriter, Charlie Kaufman, and you may know him from such great works like being John Malkovich or Adaptation, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. He is just a god to me, Charlie Kaufman. I mean, he reminds me of those great writers, directors, artists like Bergman or Antonioni, people that really like exploring the mind through artistry and how idea and memories have effect on us and how they slowly shift through time. And in Synecdoche, New York, he is using the same ideas that involve maybe an existential crisis and the creative mind, this time through the character of Caden, who is Philip Seymour Hoffman. Caden is a theater director who is going through his midlife crisis, a very typical kind of artistic type person. He's very unhappy. He is suffering from all kinds of weird diseases and symptoms that he thinks is going to lead to his demise. And his wife and his daughter just kind of get really fed up with it and they end up leaving him. So he's all alone and in this deep depression, and he decides to move away from the suburbs into New York City to create a masterwork, a play based on his life. So he uses a lot of new actors and non-actors and actors that he has worked with and maybe had relationships with in the past. But the problem is, as Caden is trying to create this play based on his life, he slowly finds it more and more difficult to try to make sense of everything that has happened in his life. I can see how this film could frustrate a lot of people because it is not easy to understand and it is not at all accessible. It is very bleak. It's a portrayal of kind of how we all wallow in our own pain and sadness, but it's also a very, very ambitious film that is filled with so many different layers and just metaphors, and you have to watch it many times to be able to decode them. You know, you may latch onto one idea and slowly after seeing it several times, it starts to kind of form into something that you can really comprehend, but in the process you'll find other things that you may not have seen the time before. Watching this movie is like if you have a bowl of ramen noodles and you're just trying to follow one little noodle through like this coiled labyrinth of noodles. It's nearly impossible just to follow that one. But it's also one of the most brilliant works that I've seen in the last 10, 15 years that had an impact on me that is so strong that my love for it only grows the older that I get. It's a film that to me is an absolute work of art. It should be in an exhibition in some great museum like MoMA. The big metaphor that is a running theme, I think, in a lot of Kaufman works is, you know, what the actual play itself, the play that Caden is trying to pull off. A play is a representation of performance art. What does performance mean to us? What do films mean to us? When we see a film or we read a book, we are seeing pieces of ourselves that we have been in the past or people that we want to be. Hopefully it allows us to kind of understand ourselves and try to make ourselves better for others. With this film, it goes a lot deeper than that, I think. It really shows us how art can blend with life in a lot of ways and how in some ways that can be a great thing, in other ways it can be a not so great thing. If you take Caden, for instance, he's this person that feels very pathetic and alone for so long, and he's trying to find fulfillment in his life after his wife leaves him, and he is linked to several women throughout the film. But what's so interesting is when you see the way they interact, he's only seeing what he wants to see, what he thinks will help him become personally fulfilled rather than the person in front of him. When I watch the film, I think of that great quote from Mad Men that is just so fitting. Don Draper says it, and I don't remember it exactly, but it's something like, you know, people show us who they are, but we don't listen because we only want to see what we want to see. That is the idea of performance that does take place in reality. So when Caden is creating this big work of his life and he's trying to cast people based on people that he really knows, he is only casting them based on what he perceives that person to be rather than what the truth is. And the whole film takes place over about 40 years, I think, from when Caden is about 40 to 80 years old. And you see how memories and people slowly shift and twist based on how he recalls them and how his life changes. And Caden is just trying to grasp at anything in order to somehow make sense of his life. But as we all know, eventually it all washes away with time. I have heard some critics complain that the film might be too grim or that the character of Caden may be slightly one note and we don't see enough facets to his personality in order to really understand that human experience or relate to it. And on some level, I do agree. I think that Caden, you know, he does have moments where he is genuinely feeling happiness or something other than deep depression. It's usually in moments where it's almost too late for him to realize it, but that's a lot like life. But he does feel genuine happiness or appreciation for living in the moment. But I would have liked to see more of those moments. But I don't think the film gets much credit for the amount of humor that's in it. It has a lot of kind of oddball comical moments in it, and it is very satirical. The humor is so quirky and kind of awkward that you're not sure whether or not you should laugh, but I think that that's a lot like how life unfolds. You know, we have kind of maybe some intimate or awkward moments that we'd rather forget that may be kind of embarrassing or humorous, but oftentimes that's the stuff that sticks with us. I also think that maybe the film could have been a little longer, and it's not a short movie, but there are just so many ideas to interpret, and I think that it might have been nice for Kaufman to settle into them just a little more. Or it honestly could just be that you need to watch it many times in order to really be able to understand each piece. Or it could just be that Kaufman is smarter than I ever will be, and that's probably the correct answer. Even though I do have my issues with the film, it doesn't bother me so much that it's got areas I think it could improve on. To me, what's important is that it runs so deep with concepts that to me just aren't explored with this much originality or to this level often enough. And when I watch a movie when I watch this movie, I feel the same thing that I do when I watch a film like The Trial by Orson Welles or a movie like Blow Up or 2001. There's just something really special going on here that leaves you breathless. So if you're a fan of maybe art house cinema and films that really are creative and more cerebral films, this is definitely the film for you. And as I said, it is not easy to comprehend, especially on initial viewing, but if you just kind of let it marinate in your mind, I think the ideas that Kaufman is presenting will slowly start to become something that you can personalize and use in your own life. That's my review. Thank you all for listening. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, the link is below. And if you want to like my Facebook page as well, you can click the link below that. Catch you next time.